Hello, happy Tuesday. Welcome back to another episode of The Practice. This show is an unrehearsed look into my creative process. I'm Stuart. I'm a 3D artist, illustrator, and your pal. I'm excited to have you back for another episode. A big episode 191. As you can probably tell from the stream, we got a brand new computer here. Totally different setup. This is the first time streaming from this machine. I think I've got everything set up properly, but everyone, please let me know if that's not the case. I am excited because I've got a much more powerful machine to play with now, bigger monitor. Using my phone as a webcam, so we'll see how that goes. Seems okay so far. So yeah, looks like we're connected. Let's dive in. So, oops. There we go, right off the bat. I have got to get my Control and Windows keys, sorted out in my mind. And that's definitely going to be something that I'll have to get used to. So forgive me as I make minor missteps here and there. All right, let's see. I want to turn off Horizon. Where are you? See that? Feel cool? All right. So I want to turn this stuff on. Let's get it looking a little better. Great. Cool. So hello. It's working all right so far? Hope so. Cool. I'm also going to quit Chrome. This. And maybe I'll leave it up. Gosh. Sorry, gang. Still getting used to this new computer. Let me know if everything's looking all right, if it's working all right. Can you see the stream? Can you hear the audio? Let me know if all that's working. I'm gonna start getting into the sketch today. So I sketched a couple little monsters here. I think I'm gonna model today. Here's an example. Here's some other guys too. Sure if you can see them. Hello. Looks like the YouTube stream is working. Good to hear from you. Thanks for tuning in. So, whoops. I'm just going to start. Whoops. There I go, touching the Windows key. Got to get used to that. I'm just going to start blocking things out here. All right. I'm going to make some lips here. I'm going to start that by closing out the spline. Set the first point here. Oops. All right. Can you guys hear me okay? I want to make sure the audio is working. First time streaming from this computer. I want to make sure I'm set up all right. Working. You know what I'm going to do? I'm just going to rotate. Need. Now. It's weird that when I'm rotating, I'm not getting little numbers that pop up to let me know how far I've rotated. I'm just gonna have to keep an eye on this. That's good to know. Come on, there we go. Right, does that look even? Yeah, that's okay, cool. Well, so I'm really excited actually about having a new computer to use for the stream. It should be a lot snappier. The display port will preview it at a higher quality because I got a better graphics card. And I think I can do larger, more complicated files, and it'll take less time to render. So a lot of good news for that. I guess the only bit of bad news, or let's call it a little bit of a challenge here, is I got to get used to the Alt, Control, and Windows keys. We'll get there. We shall get there. So what I'm doing now is just kind of setting up a spline to create some lips for this character we're going to be making. Thank you. It's a big thing. You know, I've been doing all of my 3D rendering and work from a mid 2015 MacBook Pro up until last week, which, you know, it was fine. It did the trick, but, you know, it wasn't the most powerful thing out there, that's for sure. Going on. All right. That was really weird. Oh, maybe that's it. Well, good enough. Cool. All right, settling in, settling in. Use the knife tool there to make some cuts in this spline. And actually get those guys. What I like to do is use the scale tool to make sure that these things are straight. I grab 2 points, scale them down to 0%, I know that they're going to be aligned in the orientation that I scaled them. So, right. Go that inside a sweep. Whoops, Windows key. You're going to see that a lot in the next couple streams. I've been using Macs for a very long time, so it's going to take me a minute to get out of that habit. So I would say no, probably, to your question, Utkarsh. So MacBooks are just popular computers amongst designers. You know, I really liked, I think one of the best things about Macs is their operating system. So I really miss OS X. And the hardware itself is really beautifully designed, and it works well right out of the box. I think a lot of designers, particularly like graphic designers, aren't necessarily like super into the hardware, so to speak. They just want to like buy a computer and have it work. But in terms of like computational power, no. I mean, it's not the best way to go, for sure. I don't know why this thing's all twisted up. So while I have, it's a bit of a frustration that I have to get used to some new like key commands and a new operating system. This computer is going to be significantly more powerful, which is really kind of the most important thing, depending on who you ask. So I'm using the chamfer tool to kind of put a little edge on these guys. That sorted out that weird twisting issue we had. Probably something in the banking settings I could have played with, but keep it moving. Now, if you follow me on Instagram, what you may have seen is a handful of these monster images that look fairly similar. I'm kind of continuing on in that series. Let me go ahead and add a camera now. And what I've done is, with each of those, I've had the camera not in perspective mode, but in like a head-on mode. Let's see, let's try and get the right one. Yeah, which gives us a little bit more of a graphic look, which has been kind of fun to play with. Sometimes, giving yourself constraints or parameters to work within, creates an interesting challenge and can make it a little bit more fun. All right, got some lips. Really weird. I don't know why. What's funny is I've been playing in cinema all week and the things haven't been acting this way. got sort of a lip and tongue, lip and nose combo here. I sort of unified these pieces of geometry using these mesh builders, or these volume building tools. I'm gonna do the same with these guys. Builder and a volume mesher. Control tools are acting really weird. I'm gonna do a quick restart here. If that acts any better. Weird. Some expert I am here. What in the actual hell? Look at this. Look at that axis going nuts. Wow. Now it's crashing. Strange. Sorry, guys. All right, I'm going to power through it. All right, so like we were doing before, just starting to build out the shape of this head. Getting used to the controls here. Window and control key are strange creatures coming from a PC, coming to a PC from a Mac for the first time in many, many years. I want to say I've been using, it's so strange. Anyone let me know why controls are acting differently than they always have? Normally when I just click and drag here, it scales proportionately. But it's not doing that. It's only doing it along one axis. Really strange. It's none of that. All right. So no, it's not looking like much yet, but we'll get there. Now, because we're only really worrying about one side of this illustration, and because I'm using this like head-on camera, I'm not going to worry about modeling the back side of this character at all. Not even going to bother using a symmetry object. Just going to do the one side. I mean, you could do all this and then throw it into a symmetry if you wanted to create a similar character, but then, you know, have them appear in a, in a different format where you want to see both sides of them. But for now, that's not where I'm at. Big old tooth sticking up. The other thing I'm going to do is remove this area inside the mouth that we don't want. Before modifying some of these. A little bit shape we want. And the cool thing about these volume tools is that you can use them both in an additive or a subtractive way. So I'll show you exactly what I mean. So I'm going to make this cube a bit wider, position it where I need it to remove any excess geometry from the inside of this mouth area. I'm going to add it to this hierarchy, and by default it's going to add it to the mesh. But if I go into this builder, I can grab the cube, and instead of union, I can set it to subtract. And it's going to act like a Boolean object. I'm going to remove that dude, which is cool. And I can group, add a group. Where's the group? This guy. I'm going to set this whole folder to subtract. Then I'm going to copy them. Sure that both of these are inside that folder. Make sure that's set to union so that these two join one another. Yeah. And sometimes that'll actually work better than a Boolean will. Because you can, when you go to subtract a set of geometries that are overlapping, you can get really odd results with a Boolean sometimes. This can be a little cleaner and easier, depending on what you're after. So I'm also noticing these gaps here. And those are going to let light in, kind of make things look weird. So I'm going to close those up. Part of that just by using the scale tools. And I think I'm going to wind up sculpting some of that so it fits a little better. Also going to add a smooth layer. Rename this area mouth subtract just so it's a little more obvious. Then I've got this smooth layer. Turn down a little bit. Now we're starting to get a more usable shape of the head. Maybe we'll even do it. Start coloring this eye a little bit. All right. I'm going to wind up filling this in with teeth, all that good stuff. Plenty more to do still, but just starting to build things out a bit. starting to fill in some of these gaps. And I do have symmetry turned on for these sculpting tools because I do want, I want to fill in these gaps between the lips and this geometry. One thing I've done recently, I wish I'd done this a little earlier, but I've gone ahead and customized my menus to add the sculpting tools right along the side here. I use them so much. Frequently I was going over here to the sculpting layout, but I don't always want to change my view because then I have all my other dealies up here, other useful buttons. What's up, Giles? No name yet, actually. Creepy monster guy, how's that? Mr. Beautiful. Think that's appropriate? Probably not. As I mentioned earlier in the stream, if you're just tuning in, you may notice that I'm a little bit wonky in my controls here and there because I just switched to a PC for the first time. This is my first stream with the new computer, which is really exciting because I've got lots more power at my fingertips. But I'm still not used to the Control, Command, and Windows keys. Now for months now on this stream, I've been threatening to get a new computer, and fine, the time has finally come. Great. Okay. I'm going to remove that for now. Not quite ready for that second eye. I think I will wind up adding a second eye, but not quite yet. Pro stand or the pro wheels? All right, Giles, not sure exactly what your question is. I think we can do add some teeth in. This dude, one big sharp pointy tooth, which is fun. I think the rest of his teeth should be kind of big blocky teeth. Let's get those going. Oh, hitting the Windows key. Doing that a lot for the next several months, I think. Those key commands are kind of hardwired into my brain. I've been using a Mac, gosh, since college. In a while. It's been a while. That's a good question. I haven't made up my mind yet about R22. I do not have a perpetual license. I've just been sort of buying new copies of Cinema as needed. I upgraded from R18 to R20, and I'm not sure yet. It's expensive. The next time I upgrade, I'll probably will get one of those perpetual licenses. It's not a cheap program to use. It does look like it has some neat new features. I think one of the most exciting things looks like the UV tools have been updated, because that's one of the things I think Cinema wasn't strongest at, let's say. Other UV tools were a little bit tricky to work with. A simple little test rendering, actually. Renderings are definitely much faster, which is cool. I'm getting some weirdness in the rendering in the eye, and that's because I'm not in perspective. I'm not in a perspective camera, and this eye is set to render perfect. So I think yeah, there we go. Sometimes render perfect will create strange effects when you're in non-perspective cameras. What's up, Romel? Oh, Aku, yes, I know Aku. I'm a fan of Samurai Jack. In fact, I did an episode on Aku this, when was it? I don't know, months ago. It's been a while. But dig Aku. And yeah, this does kind of look like an Asian style dragon, doesn't it? Yeah, one thing I'm really loving about the new computer is how much better the viewport looks. I could turn all the settings up there, and it works nice and smoothly. Throw a little GI on there. You can see how much faster it goes. Yeah, so Aku and Samurai Jack in general are really, really sweet. The guy who makes that show, Gennady Tarakovsky, his Russian name is somewhat difficult to pronounce, but he is incredible. His work is really inspiring. He's a lot. I've seen on YouTube a lot of people just making note of the way he animates things and just how he uses keyframes and key poses and animates between them in a really compelling and beautiful way. Very influential animator. One thing is my new mouse is incredibly sensitive when it comes to scrolling. So jumping around a little bit, you'll notice. Right. Also want to create some sort of a fill light. So for that, I'm just going to use a sky and one of these built-in HDRI images. Content browser. Try that. I think it's probably going to be a little bit too bright for me right out of the bat. I'm going to go into luminance, just kind of turn that down a bit. See what we get. Nice and quick. Love it. How much time do I usually spend on sketch concept design? That's a great question. It depends on the piece. Sometimes like hardly any at all. Sometimes lots. A lot of times for client stuff, when it's important that we get the idea down and there's confidence in my ability to render the thing, and it's not, it's not an experiment in the way that the practice typically is, I will spend a lot more time. For this guy, I did a little bit of sketching last night, not a ton, but this is in the style of, I've done many pieces in this style before, so I didn't feel the need to do too much. I'm going to add a smooth layer to these lips as well. Turn it down a bit. Smooth them out just a little bit. Because I've done that, I'm going to make the circle just slightly larger. I might even exaggerate these a bit. I remember the light dark chapter. I do not. Is that a Samurai Jack thing? I haven't seen every episode, I don't believe. It's okay. I want to exaggerate the proportions more though. What I'll do, go even further. Size of this mouth. Let's make much more elongated snout. This creature. Bring that nose up. More mouth. More mouth. Cool. Noted. I'll have to check that out. Is that Samurai Jack? Cool. that Windows key again. Can't avoid it. Yeah, much more interesting. Longer snout is working. Additional eyes are fun. Cool. Glad you like them. All right, let's see if we can get a little bit of a neck shape going here. turn the gamma up to 2 just so we get a little bit more distance on our light. Or that better. See that it fills in the midtones a lot more. Kind of looks like a horse at the moment, doesn't he? I tried quad remesher. I'm not sure, is that this thing? Oh, interesting. So is it like a standalone program? Yeah, cool. I'll have to check that out. What's it called? Quad remesher. Huh. So I'm getting a little bit too much of a horse vibe from this guy. We need to alter the colors a little bit. Let's do a couple tests. See what we like. I'm going to do here, add a little bit of hair. So let's check that out. right, so now we're getting that even scaling that I wanted. I don't know why that was acting so strange before. All right, so first time I've tried hair actually on this computer. What it does. Turn the specular way down. Know that. There's another thing I'm gonna have to get used to is the OK and cancel buttons. I think are on opposite sides of what they are in a Mac. Really strange. Strange for me at least. Not that there's anything inherently better about one side versus the other. This is going to take me a moment to get used to it. Let's see what that gets us. Nothing. That might be because of camera as well. Yeah, it is. Huh. That is strange, and that is something I'm not sure I know how to get around. That's what we'll do. Oh, of course. Do this. Let's sort of get it in position. I'm going to take this camera and I'm going to make the focal length really high. Zoom it on back out. It's going to give us nearly the same effect, but we'll include the hair. Maybe. There we go. Now, for me, this is too much hair. I want it to be kind of thin and straggly. When you turn on physical render, the hairs always look much better. I've got this new computer, I got the power to do that. Times. Add a little bit of curl. Twist. There. Whoa. I'm not sure I really like those ridges down the back. For the time being. What I'm also going to do is I'm going to pull up. I'll take a peek at some of the stuff I've done in the past because I liked how these came out. I want to reference them again. This guy was fairly simple. His scales are really cool though. Both in a similar style. Check them out though. One of the things we could do add a little bit of shine to the lips. Just a bit. A little goes a long way. Same thing over here to the eyes and teeth. Actually, what I'll probably do is make a separate material for the teeth. Because I don't want them to be quite as reflective or the same color. That. Put my cone in with my teeth. I want to do reflectance way down. And the default specular down on all these dudes. Eye material should be more reflective. Teeth. There we go. Beauty of having all these eyes. Really look at a lot of directions at once. This is kind of down and dirty, but I'm just removing the top bit of geometry from this sphere that I'm using to generate the hairs onto. Weirdly, it looks like it orientation. Don't go ahead. Oh. Weirdly, it's still populating that area. Oh no, it's not. Better. Stupid Windows key. Whoops. Come on. Crash there, that's no fun. try a version without this hair. I'm not sure if I'm really feeling it. What's up, everybody? New viewers in there. How's it going? If you got any questions, any thoughts, let me know what you're working on. This is my first live stream with the new computer, so I'm getting used to these new commands. A little bit strange. What's up, Alexandra? Explain volumes, what it is and what can replace it in early versions. So we're talking about this a little earlier on the stream, actually. The volume mesher is a great way to combine shapes. It's kind of like a super improved version of metaballs combined with the Boolean object. I'm using it here, actually. What you can see is I've got this volume builder and volume mesher with a bunch, I'll just turn them off so you can see, just a bunch of different individual shapes. And then you put them inside this volume builder, which creates like a voxel cloud, and then the mesher inside of them. And the cool thing that you can do is, inside this builder, you can see that I've got a group that's set to subtract. What that is basically like a Boolean object. Then it smooths them all out. Really useful, actually. And thanks for the comments. Appreciate you tuning in. Appreciate you saying you like my work. Got here. You know, it might be fun, actually. Let's try a new thing. Let's create some drool thing. Volume tools. I'll show you how they work. Start just with the sphere. And we're going to throw it inside, throw it inside a volume builder. Stupid window accidentally. We'll throw that volume builder inside the volume builder. And you're thinking, it's just a sphere, what's the difference, right? Let's get it going. Whoops. all I can do is create sort of the drippy part of the drool, right? Copy that guy down a little bit, a little smaller, and you see it starts automatically combining these shapes. You could do this with a sweep probably, but it might not be as flexible. Whenever you can work with like flexible, non-destructive means, it's like almost always the best way to work. Come back in and change things around. Scoot this whole thing down just a little bit. Take a clean new sphere. I'm going to hold Alt while I do that. Puts it in the right position. Scoot that down. It's kind of a drop, a drippy shape. See, that automatically starts combining the bits of geometry. Now, it's a little bit low resolution for what we want to work on. So I can go down here and turn the voxel size down, which is going to give us a more dense mesh. Start getting that smoothing. And if the smoothing isn't quite what you want, you can go in here and add a smooth layer. That's too much. I'm going to turn it down a little bit. Some nice smoothing in there. Good. I'm going to turn the voxel size down again. That belongs there. Where do we want it? I usually, to answer your question, Alexandra, I usually only work with the native Cinema 4D renderers. I haven't tried Octane or Redshift. I don't buy other textures. There's a lot you can do with the built-in Cinema 4D textures. And materials, I should say. I'd say most of what I do is like building procedural textures. The way to do it, in my opinion. Let's try something. Make a copy of this. On transparency. Turn on some refraction, and I'll even turn on a little bit of blur. Crazy like that. And I got this new computer which can handle it, so that's pretty cool. We got a bit of drool. There you go. What's up, Nathan? Thanks for tuning in. Glad you think it's artistic. Try that again. Add a little bit more drool. It's a little too glassy. I think let's get really expensive with these. So I'm gonna reflection, turn up the blur a little bit, quite a bit. Turn up the blur inside of the transparency as well. Cool looking texture. And while that's rendering, I'll show you the lighting setup. Very simple. I've got a spotlight here up top, and I've got a sky object with one of the HDRI images that come from Cinema's content library, just to give us a little bit of fill light. There's no need to be rendering again. I already did this rendering, so I'm gonna cancel that. It's kind of like a nervous tick. I just hit render all the time. Thanks, appreciate that. Maybe a little bit too transparent at the moment. A little bit. What I might also do, make it a little more realistic, add just a little bit of luminance, add some subsurface scattering. We'll just go for it. This looks like it's hollow. I think the subsurface scattering is going to allow the light to bounce around inside of it more realistically, which is should give us a little bit more of a volumetric feel. Turn that up a bit. Yeah, Nathan, I mean, I think you can get a heck of a lot of good stuff done just with the native Cinema 4D tools. As you can see, with the type of work that I like to do, I like, kind of goofy character-based stuff. I like doing a lot of landscapes, things like that. I don't do highly complex scenes with lots of plugins and, fancy renderings, rendering setups and stuff like that. I like to keep the focus on color and form and composition and more basic design principles. And I care a little bit less about the fanciest of lighting setups. I talk about this a lot on the show. It might work against me occasionally. I don't know. That's just me. It's not necessarily the right way to work for everybody, but I enjoy it. All right, a little subsurface scattering. Let's see what that gets us. That's a longer rendering. Now we got to spend time at the beginning calculating subsurface caches. But I want to test the new computer a little bit. Do with it. Really not so bad. The lips have lost some of their darkness, so I want to get in there and that up a little bit. Let's see how this would look with red lips. Yeah, Alexandra, that's a good question. I'm a full-time illustrator. That's what I do for a living. It's how I earn my money. I worked as a graphic designer in agencies and for small studios, collecting my paycheck from my employer for the first approximately 10 years of my career. About 4 years ago, I decided that I had saved enough money and I'd gotten my illustration skill set, my 3D skills up to the point where I wanted to try striking out on my own and doing my own thing. Luckily, it's worked out so far. So yeah, that's how I earn my living now. I don't always get paid making stuff this wacky. A lot of times it's a little bit more reserved corporate kind of stuff, but that's fine. What to do. You can see actually on my website, in for you here. That is the type of stuff I do. That's my collection of work. A lot of that is the corporate stuff. I think I do like this. Red lips. There. Just experimenting a little bit. Thanks, Alexandra. I think. Just rotated that sky a little bit. I just want to experiment with changing the way the reflections interact with the surface of the model. Sometimes that can make a big difference. Also think, oops. A little bit more reflectivity, but much blurrier, rougher reflection. Yeah, this is feeling better to me. Getting that yellow in there. Orangey yellow works well. See that the reflections look a little different, the lighting's slightly different just from rotating eye object. Let's try and see how a few different switch up the sky map. See what that gets us. Now you can see already difference in the lighting. Get more of a rim light. Looks like the front face, the face that's closest to the camera, is going to be shadowed a little bit more. We've also got this spotlight going on. That is really the primary source of light in the scene. But it can be good to experiment with this a little bit. What you get? It's taken a while longer. It was, I suppose, I was putting my work out there for years before I really got any, anyone who wanted to work with me, pay me to do 3D illustrations. It's always a bit of a process. And I started looking for clients and freelancing while I was still at the other agency. So it wasn't like I just jumped out and tried to do it on my own without having any sort of, an income. So I'd done a few things. I'd learned a lot by, being in studios and having, managers and art directors who were far more experienced than I was, which is important. And I'm kind of glad I did it that way. I learned a lot about, how to write a good client email, how to manage the course of a project, there's a lot to learn. I'm glad I had my experience inside of studios in the beginning, the first decade of my career, really. And then, I was carefully saving my money and working on that because I didn't want to just jump out without being able to, pay rent and things like that. The other thing I did is made sure I had a couple of clients that I could go to. So I had some work to do when I originally struck out on my own, which I think was really important. And sometimes it can be a little bit light in terms of the amount of work that's coming in. It's not always fully busy. And even in days when I don't have client work to do, I still get up and treat it like a work day. I'll still, still do my thing. I'll still make stuff. I think that's important. You got to treat it like a job if you want it to be your job. You got to be a pro. You can't lay around drinking beer and playing video games and then expect to produce good work when a client calls. You got to work on that skill set. You got to treat it like it's your job. It's kind of the tough thing is, a lot of people will sort of think they've got a lot of potential, and they might, but you have to demonstrate that you can create the quality of work that you want to ultimately do for clients as a freelancer on your own before people will actually hire you to do that. People don't want to make too much of a jump. They don't want to go out on a limb too much for you. Say like, you haven't demonstrated that you can do this at a professional level yet, but I'll still hire you for it anyway. Like, people really aren't going to do that. So that's the way I look at it. But the beautiful thing is, it's something I enjoy doing. I don't mind practicing and improving my skills or trying to improve my skills. It's something that I enjoy doing. So it's an enjoyable process. Loving the sort of stair-stepping that's happening here. Because the volume mesher really it like sort of creates a 3D grid, and the voxels are divided X, Y, and Z coordinates, and this is not in an X, Y, and Z coordinate. This is sort of angled, right? So there's a bit of a stair stepping that's happening. There's a few things I can do there. That's part of why I would use booth. So turn the voxel size down a bit. The reflection is really what highlights that. And the reflections. What I'm also going to do, rotate this sky. See how that looks. One last lighting experiment. I'm going to turn off this light and go all in on the sky. Here we go without the spotlight, just with a big fill light. CRI, probably render a little quicker. The subsurface scattering might not be as pronounced. I still can't help but think that this looks a lot like a horse. Wacky old horse. Started more dragon-like. Actually, while it's rendering, sometimes it's fun to go back and look at where we started. This is our initial blocking of the character. We extended the head and added some eyes. And yeah, it really starts looking like a horse there. Getting rid of that hair. It was kind of cool, but it wasn't working for me. You can see it without strong spotlight. I think I actually might prefer it without the strong spotlight. Gives us less of that hard highlight on some of these surfaces. Also less shadowing, of course. What do you guys think? Let's rotate it a little bit. Without, okay. Alex agrees. Very realistic horse. Yeah, and I think that angle might actually be what we want. All right, I think we're getting there. Also thinking these teeth, more reflectance. Just a bit. Yeah, exactly. It is. That's one of the things I'm loving about this new computer is it's actually allowing me to iterate more and do more test renderings quickly. Thing. Right. I'm good with that. All right, let's do one last rendering. I think close to calling it a day on that. The lighting dilemma. That's why it's difficult to always get a perfect finished piece on the practice on this weekly YouTube show that I do. I view it really as, that's why it's called The Practice. I view it as, an opportunity to try out some new things, to experiment a little bit, to consistently apply my skills and, try to learn and improve and, make some decent work in the process. But what I really like to do for more important, longer term pieces is to, work on something for a while, then, do some iterations, then put it down and go to bed and wake up and look at it with sort of fresh and rested eyes. It allows you to see, sort of what you might be doing right or wrong. Allows you to tweak and adjust. There's nothing wrong with really taking your time and trying different things out and experimenting and iterating until the thing is just right. It looks like a maniac. Little crazy horse. Cool. Save this out. Tweak it quickly in Photoshop, do a little bit of color correcting. It's hard for you to go back to a project after 2 or more days of a pause. Why is that? You don't care about it anymore? I'll say that's maybe something you gotta work on and try and get through. This is kind of a hacky way to do this. I should have saved out an alpha channel. This isn't working right. I might go back in and just save myself out an alpha. Actually, not so bad. Yeah, I'm gonna save out an alpha. So I can do whatever color background I want. So let's go back here. Turn off GI, ambient, and hair. Turn my alpha. That. Go much faster without GI and ambient occlusion on. I could even like remove my textures if I wanted to get crazy with it, but this should be fairly quick. Bump up the saturation here while that's going. Something with consistency. Yeah, well, I think that's where treating it like a job comes in handy. You got to be your own boss. You got to say, okay, well, it's Tuesday morning, time to wake up, get to work. Let's take this alpha, alpha version here. All I'm gonna do is hit Control and click on this, and that's gonna just load the alpha channel. I'm just gonna get rid of that layer because I don't need the layer itself. I just want that alpha. I'm gonna create a mask. There we go, much cleaner. Let's choose a color. So many options. Decisions. I think I'm gonna call it there. All right. Cool. Well, congratulations, you made it to the end. Been fun to put together this wacky looking horse. Let's actually a little harder with the saturation. Yeah, just a touch. So I hope you learned something. I hope you found this useful. If you did, please share it with a pal. Hit that subscribe and like button for new videos every Tuesday. If you want to keep up with me and the work that I'm doing, hit me up on DLGNCE on Instagram and all the social medias. And until next week, this is Stuart saying thanks for tuning in. See ya.